Well, we're going to start this new episode on finishing off the corner blocks. And as you can see here, I've got some small clamps set up with some extra blocks in the corner. You're probably wondering, okay, what's he going to do now? As opposed, you'd think with what I had there already would have been strong enough, but I like to add a little bit of strength to the corners. The old method I used to have a big solid wood block in here with screws coming in from the sides, and then the rails, the transom, well, any of the side and end rails would come together into that block. But it was really, as I've said in the description of this hole, the blocks were time-consuming and complicated to make. Even for me, I knew what I was, done them before. But to try to explain it in text and in drawings, people would email me and say, "What the hell does this mean?" So I've come to this pretty much now in all my boats and my designs, where the corners come in, like you saw, and that will come in with another vertical look, but be filled with easy fillet in all these holes here, and then they'll be shaped. And then underneath in here will be a piece of a 1/4-inch plywood formed and glued in place with either Gel Magic or maybe some easy fillet. I haven't decided yet how much gap. If you have a bigger gap, sometimes the fillet material is better to use than, say, the Gel Magic is, even though the Gel Magic would do it, but the easy fillet tends to do better in those bigger openings, gaps. That's why I'm going to be using it in here. So let me reset up and I'll show you what I'm kind of doing. We'll come on with a down angle here. Okay, you can see we've got the outside rail, that longer spacer block, and then the inside rail here. And then I've got this other spacer rail that comes down to here, and then this other one inside. So I've got 4 little corners I'm going to have to fill up. And then it goes off in this direction, same thing to outside rail, plywood, spacer block, the longer inside rail, and then 2 more corner blocks in here. So here's a better angle of what I'm talking about in here. All these things will get filled up from behind. And I also added over here, I took my my gauge and laid it across here, and I drew some colored lines with a brown pencil, and over in here too. And those for line-up marks. Now, before I glue Easy Gel Magic these 2 on to the rails I have in here, I need to take these off and put some screws in here. I've got a screw already down here, right there. I've got a little mark in there too to show where it's at. And when you have a screw going through any of these places, put some kind of mark, whether it's a piece of tape or, like right now here, I've got a pencil mark with an arrow pointing in. So that indicates a screw. Probably a safer bet would be to mark it underneath on the hull here, so you'll know, because once we get these planed down, you won't be able to see these marks anymore. So it's handy to have them underneath too. So let me go ahead and take these apart, and we'll drill some holes. Well, I've added a couple stainless screws through these, the inner rail and then the spacer block, plywood, and outer rail. And then I did the same thing on here. On these screws, I had to use my grinder to cut them down a little bit because the outer rail was a little thinner than, say, the inside rail. So got that done. Now I can go start adding the Gel Magic, these interior blocks again. They'll be drilled again after I get everything is all cured. We'll come back. Well, I've got all the holes drilled in behind here, and then I've got these Gel Magic in place, and you can see there's a little bit of stair stepping here on this one. And then once it's cured, then we'll come back and start shaping these down. And then there'll be a lot more shaping on this one. This one will get quite beveled, so the angle will be somewhat flat all the way across there. There might be a little bit of arching on the corners, like on the Granville Bay transom. And I think one of the other ones had a little bit of rounding, especially the Granville Bay. But all this extra width in here gives you something to grab onto also, and extra strength. So we'll come back. Well, Well, we can go ahead and take the clamps off now. Not much clamping I'm going to have to do from now on. Trying to think what very rare. So we got the clamps off, and then we'll let me come in for a close-up, Mr. DeVille. And you can see we've got our close-up here. So this all gets filled. So I'm going to break out my little saw and do some initial trimming along in here. But underneath here will be the big pad. And I'll make a cardboard template before I cut out the plywood. Do a little bit of preliminary trim work here. That'll get tapered down some more with the plane, but that gets me down closer to what I want. Let me go ahead and do the rest of them. Now we got our little block plane out, low angle block plane. I probably should sharpen the blade. Just barely take anything off. Right now, we're just trying to get some evenness out of the way. Get it flat. Try not to even, wobble it around one way or the other. We want to keep the angle the same, not flatten it out. Doesn't need to do that. We're taking down the plywood and the rails down to make them even with the blocks inside. About right in right here. This spacer block's a little slow. Don't get too carried away in any one spot. You want the whole thing to come down gradually. Don't go digging. Sometimes that'll happen when you come up to the edge of a spacer block that might be high. Okay, I'm happy with the long here. There's a couple spots right in here. There. That's good. A lot of this will get sanded down too. So take it easy. I got a spot in here that would just as easily sand down. So let me go back up and work on the corner here. You can see how it's starting to come into place now. You got a nice smooth surface on it. A little discoloration right here, but I can sand that down. I'll go work into one of the corners. I had to put a weight inside there. Sometimes the wood grain will go against you too. I got some spots down right in here where I was kind of chafing a little. Okay. Starting to get her smoothed down here. Well, like I was starting to say, if you're starting to dig in a little bit, change direction. You got some grain going the other way. And once in a while, break out the old hand rasp. The other thing I did too is I took my saw and beveled, rounded off, or 45 the corner, and now I've been rounding them somewhat off. There's still a little bit of shoulder on this back edge here, but it's rounded over. And then we'll do some rounding on this too. Not a whole lot, but just enough, because the edges are easily chipped, but once you round them over a little bit, they're not so susceptible to damage. There you can see how it's coming in. I had one little splice I had to put in here. The inside rail was just short, but that's fine. There'd be so much going on around here anyway. You'd be looking at, unless you're a nitpicker. If you're a nitpicker, well then, you don't want to come in here. But it looks good at 10 feet, it's great. That's what I say. It's a boat, you're going to go use it, it's not furniture. And then you can be a nitpicker. But now I got the shape I'm going to have, or I want to have, and then I'll fill these up with easy fillet, and then we'll shape it down again. But I wanted to get down somewhat to my final elevation. Well, up here on the bow, having to take down some material. Remember, I was dropping these. Each one was a little bit lower than the front one was, but now that I'm up here, there will be a little bit of an angle. I should have had it up a little higher, I guess, but I think it's going to look okay. It's going to be almost flat by the time I get done with it. But now I'm just taking off as much wood as possible and getting my exercise for the day and working up a pit. Flip it over and use the finer side. Now I got this from Chuck down at Duckworks. Or did I? No, I think I got it locally, but Duckworks BBS sells them, so it's a great addition to your arsenal, along with my little fancy one here. Be careful of your edges, you don't knock out a big chunk. Sometimes it's handy to round them over a little bit. Keep that from happening. Let me go back to planing here. We'll come back. No use in boring you. Well, I've got the bow all shaped down. I had to take my low angle plane and put a polish on the blade. It wasn't getting the plywood a nice smooth cut. So And I got a little spot in here. It feels a little rough, which I might bring the plane back down. But I've got that. I've got to go around now and round over the edges, and then do some final drilling around the inside. So that should do it for today.